right, we're here at my Vermihut indoor worm bin, and the first thing you may notice is we have a pretty serious depression right here. And that's because we had a major emergency in here. So remember last time we did an experiment, we put protein powder right here, we put eggshell grit here, we put worm chow here, and we put coffee right here. So let's go ahead and look at what happened. Now, one of the things that was crazy about that time lapse is we could see that the worms weren't anywhere near the protein powder, as you can see as I pull back and forth through this time lapse. So after the last segment of that time lapse, we had to take matters into our own hands. And you can tell by the tone of my voice. Let's go to that. So we've got a bit of an emergency situation right here where the protein powder was put. It's got some mold on it and some mites, but the mites look like they're not moving anymore. And the worst thing happened when we lifted it for the time lapse. I smelled a faint smell of ammonia, and now that I'm closer, I can smell it a lot. So we need to get this out of here. That is a noxious gas that will kill worms. So I'm just going to kind of lift from the bottom. And I think we're on day 9, and the executive producer on about day 3 thought we should get rid of it, and she was right. So it is coming totally out. Now I'm going to dig under here to see if I see any worms, and if I don't, I think I'm just going to take this section of the bin out because the worms have been moving around all the other sections. But bad news here, this would have been gone in 9 days. There's some flesh in here, so I'm going to take this section out. Here we go. Just grab it in handfuls and try not to go over the other sides. Just kind of go out and towards me. Oops. You know what? I'm starting to see worms underneath. So maybe it was just kind of that first inch or so. I have really made things complicated now. Let me make sure the worms get in here and pull this out. And I got the one that was on my finger. So let me just go a couple inches in. And just like that. Here's one. Go over here as well. And maybe just a little bit around the periphery here. Okay, I think they can recover from that. And we're seeing the feeding zone right here, and I think we saw some worms underneath it. Let's see. Anything on that? If I don't see any worms on it, I'm taking it out. This was not a worm, but I thought it was. All right, I think that will do it. Just like that. And then whatever is over here on the sides as well, get out. Okay, we'll be back to this bin in about 4 days, and hopefully I've got any kind of ammonia runaway problems out of here, and it'll be just back to a normal worm bin. Not liking the look of that either. Okay, I need to stop because I'm just going to keep doing this if I don't get my hands out of here. And there's worms clearly on the bottom, so it should be okay. So there we go, last handful. So during that time that we stopped the time lapse, and now it's been several days, and let's see if there's any worms down here, and there are, so I'm pretty happy about that. Now we're gonna have to go in a new direction with this bin. We were gonna rotate, but I think now we need to bulk it up a little bit. We're gonna have to do that with food, and I also wanna make sure that there's plenty of worms up here, and clearly they are. Now I made a mistake last time by putting way too much shredded cardboard in for a last feeding. Typically the last feeding before I rotate, I don't put that much shredded cardboard, but I was torn because we did the tofu experiment and took a bunch out, and now we took out a bunch again. So I'm just gonna have to deal with the fact that this bin is just not gonna be as full with castings as a typical tray is. Sorry, I keep calling it a bin. So we're just gonna have to put up with that. I don't normally run experiments that go bad and have to take out some bulk, so we're just gonna give it a pretty big feeding, and a feeding that's gonna have a lot of great food for them that is not going to take too long, because ultimately, after we come back and rotate, it'll be 60 days before all of this should be shredded cardboard. So, maybe 75 days from now, we'll be harvesting. So I'm just going to open up an area right here and we will set in our feeding zone. But before that, let's talk about what we fed them the last time. First, we put down way too much shredded cardboard for a last feeding, as you saw. Then we added some banana peels along with a couple lettuce stalks from my garden, some apple cores, and various other veggies and fruits that tagged along, including the very first strawberry from my garden and some blueberries. Then we topped it off with shredded cardboard and buried it up in preparation for our experiment. Now let's get on with today's feeding. So the little bit of bedding I am going to give them is just some soiled paper towels. And we're going to go in with most of this food right here. So we'll start with this apple core, put some more down. And looks like we've been eating a lot of apples lately. And then I've got some more lettuce from our garden and some strawberries that I'm pretty happy about. We'll keep adding in more of the same. Looks like we got a tomato there. Now I'll just add all these various fruits and vegetable parts that we had from the last week. That looks good. And I think I'm going to put in some more stuff. Here's some banana peels. We might see this when we go to harvest because this part of the banana really takes a long time. But we'll add some other peels and such so that the worms have plenty to eat over the next 75 days or so. All right, next we're gonna go in with a whole bunch of coffee because, as you can tell in the time lapse, the worms really went after it. After a few days, it was like they all gathered up and decided to put a hurting on that coffee. So they are gonna get a whole bunch because I know they like it, and I'll check to make sure that the heat is not increasing in this tray. Next, we're gonna put in a whole bunch of eggshell grit because we know they like it, and I love watching those time lapses because within a day, the worms have come up and really attacked them pretty well. In fact, I'll put it all over the place in here. Now we're just going to go ahead and bury this up, and I really have to thank the executive producer because even on day like 1 or 2, she thought that we should stop the experiment and that things weren't going well, and she was absolutely right, but thankfully we stopped when I started to smell that really bad ammonia smell. But I think I am done with experiments in this worm bin for a while now. You know what? I'm going to top it off with some more coffee, even though the executive producer definitely doesn't want me to do this. I think we can add more just like that. So lesson learned for me is I am not going to put a whole bunch of food in here that is high in protein. Between the tofu and the protein powder, it's just not working out for me. Let me know if you have tried either of those in your worm bins and if you've had any problems and what quantities and how you did it. That will help us all out. So I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, hit that subscribe button and give me a like. And if you want to see another experiment where I tested up blended food scraps versus whole food scraps, check out this video right here. So fingers crossed we'll be able to rotate the next time you see this bin. So I hope you're having a great day. I hope your worm bins are doing fantastic. So happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now.